Couple of things. I just woke up and saw we hit 700 subscribers, so thank you so much for being absolute killers. Second thing, today was supposed to be a Supreme Kai of Time tournament run upload, but the audio is very drowned out, and I think I'm gonna have to play that again tomorrow on stream, so decklist time. Just like always, we're starting it off with the leader, Supreme Kai of Time, auto, burst 3, when this card attacks, draw 1 card, and then awaken when you're at 4 less life, or you have 8 or more cards in your warp, draw 2 cards, add cards from your life until you have 6 cards left, and then flip this card over. Most of the time, you're going to get the alternate awaken where you're going to have 8 cards on the warp pretty quickly in this deck. So we'll flip over to the backside here, and this is where the magic happens. I had to throw this damn thing in the sleeve because my webcam does not like shiny cards. Auto, once per turn, when you play a battle card using Overwhelm, draw 1 card, then place up to 3 black battle cards from your warp to the drop area. Activate main, once per turn for 1 black energy. You can choose 1 card in your hand, discard it. If you don't have a unison in play, play 1 black unison, no specified cost. So we're playing our unison for 1 energy and discarding 1 card. So our unisons are never really gone. And then activate main once per turn. Place 1 card from your life to the drop area. Place up to 2 black battle cards from your warp to the drop area. Battle cards you play using Overwhelm aren't sent to the warp at the end of the turn. So super cool that you can just crit a life and then keep some of your scarier guys on field. Obviously, there's situations where you don't want to do it, but most of the time, especially if you got the new Z battle card out, you're going to be doing that effect a lot. The nice thing about this leader is that on the front side, it does draw on swing. On the back side, it doesn't. So what you can do when you know you're going to awaken is swing, get your draw on the front side, and then awaken mid-battle, and then have your Overwhelm ability to draw after on this side. So you'll get a draw from the front, and then you'll still have your auto on the back where you can trigger and draw, since she doesn't draw and swing on her awaken side. Started off with the most important thing you want to see early, your unison. So we're going with Demigra Momentary Ally, for a simple fact that it can give you Wormhole. So auto once per turn, burst 1. If your leader card is Black Sand only or Black God only card, when you play a battle card using Overwhelm, this card gains Wormhole for the turn. And then it has a +1 where you can place up to 2 black battle cards from your warp to the drop area. And it has -3 activate main where you can add up to 2 black battle cards with energy cost 7 or less, and with Overwhelm skill from your warp to your hand. Pretty cool. Doesn't happen too often because people are going to try to get down that unison really quick because they don't want you to have Wormhole. They want you to waste an extra energy every turn, but you'll see how it comes along. The first batch of battle cards here are kind of what you want to see turn 1. So especially if you're going second, you really want to see these because you want to start your aggression pretty early. Because this deck, you can kill effectively by turn 3, you can even kill by turn 2, depending on how good everything's going. So Revive Ravager Vegeta, critical Overwhelm 3. When you play this card using Overwhelm, you can place up to 3 cards on the top of your deck in your drop area. So you can refuel your drop area for the Wormhole effect. So this is an essential card for the deck, 4 of 100%. I was running at a 3 and it just sucked when I didn't see it in my opening hand, so 4 made it a lot more consistent. And then just being able to have 3 battle cards in where you can get an Overwhelm 6 turn 1 realistically if you really needed it. Next up, Time Regulator Trunks. So another early Overwhelm. When you play him with Overwhelm, you get to draw 2 cards to send 1 card from your hand to the warp. He's also 15k. He doesn't have critical, but he does help fix your hand a little bit. Put a card in your warp if you needed some pieces in your warp, say for a thwarting later on. I would rather see the Vegeta first. He's kind of the backup, and he does help with one of the new Dash Pack cards as well too. Speaking of Dash Pack cards, here we go. Another thing you can play turn 1 if you do see the Vegeta and you have the Unison. You can play Trunks challenging the Dark Empire. So Overwhelm 6, dual attack. If your leader is Black Supreme Kai of Time, when this card attacks, use one of your cards with 5k combo power from your warp in a combo with its skills negated for the turn. And that auto is not once per turn. So you basically are swinging with 24 dual attack, which if anyone remembers Fighting Against Fate, it hasn't been too long. This guy is 1k short of that, and he can fill your drop area or your Z energy with some combo cards, which is awesome. So I am running him at 4 copies. I did originally run this list at 3 copies with him. Honestly, you can still run 3 copies. I did 4 just so I could see him turn 1. He is super good, and it doesn't ever really feel bad in my hand because he's a 0.5k anyway. So 3 copies is completely doable, but 4 copies I think is the right number. The next one here, Son Goten, challenging the Dark Empire. So the opposite of this Trunks card, he's also Overwhelm 6. You're never going to play him for the Overwhelm. You could if you're really in a sticky situation, but he's Double Strike, activate main limit 1 if your leader is Black Supreme Kai of Time, you have 2 or more energy, and you have a Trunk Xeno card in play. Play this card from your hand or warp, and then when this card is played from hand, you get to draw 1. So this guy is in your warp. Tap 1 energy, you got him out, go nuts. Tap 1 energy, you got this guy out. So that's why we have him as backup as well. If we can't find our trunks, we burn through all our trunks and we haven't been able to get back to hand, you can use that trunks instead to bring him out for that 1 extra energy. He does have a permanent though when this card is removed from a battle area, removed from the game instead, so you can't really cycle him from the battle area. You can't even combo him just because as soon as he goes out of the battle area, he's gone. You can combo obviously from hand or from the Trunks' effect. But that's why this one I think you have to run at 4. Even if you got the Trunks at 3, you want to have access to as many copies of these as possible because once they're off the battle area, they're gone. You can't grab them back. They're removed from the game just like a Z battle card is. Next up on the dock is 2 copies of SS3 Goku, Man on a Mission. This card, Overwhelm 6, critical, double strike 20k. If you can slam both these cards down going second on your turn 1, you can potentially get your opponent to crit 3 life or get rid of almost all the cards in their hand just to protect themselves from this. I would honestly put this up to 3 playing this deck more. Don't know where the hell my 3rd copy went, but this card's been a lot stronger than I thought it was going to be in the deck, and I would probably up it to at least 3. Yeah, sorry that I keep moving everything around. I'm just trying to get everything to fit on the mat properly, but 4 copies of SS4 Son Goku Beyond All Limits. Overwhelm 6, you probably know what it does, but if you don't, auto, if your leader is black, when you play this card using Overwhelm, you can grab a black battle card between the energy costs of 3 and 7 from your warp, add it to your hand. A lot of targets for that in this deck, almost everything except for a secret rare, but we'll get to that in a bit. Next up, newer card, Mass Saiyan Belligerent Warrior. Deflect, permanent if your leader's black and you sent a card from your drop area to your warp this turn, reduce the energy cost in your hand by 6. So it is basically a 1-drop 20k deflect, and when this card is played, choose 2 of your opponent's battle cards, send them to their owner's warps, and this card gains critical for the turn. At the end of your opponent's next turn, negate the skills on the cards sent to the warp by this skill for the turn and play them to the owner's battle areas. Super good board removal. Obviously it's not a permanent board removal unless they have certain permanents like this where it says once they're moved from the battle area, they're moved from the game instead, so that wouldn't come back, or like a secret rare, same thing, they'd be gone for good, but it can get rid of threats for a full turn cycle. Next up, we got the tournament promo, SS Son Goku Reflexive Strike, and that art for the winner is probably up there, probably my top 3 favorite winner arts, but it's Overwhelm 3, so if you can't find these in your opening turns, you can Overwhelm 3 for this guy. He does have an activate main where you can send this card to the warp, draw 2 cards, and then send 1 card from your hand to the warp. Very similar to that Trunks, but if you really need to get the draw off your leader, you can use him. A lot of times in the deck, I am using for his activate main limit 1, so basically if my leader is Black Supreme Kai of Time, I can discard him from my hand. I look at the top 5 cards, I can grab a Goku Xeno or a Vegeta Xeno. Most of the time, I'm just going to grab a Vegeta Xeno, either this guy or my super combo. But he does have a counter effect, which is really cool. You tap him for 3 energy. If my leader Supreme Kai of Time, I negate the counter skill and play this card. So you get a cooler, but in Supreme Kai of Time. Obviously, yellow uses energy a lot more efficiently than black. Usually in black, I'm trying to not pay energy and then use only energy for like my Champas or for this Goten or for the Mass Saiyan. 3 energy is a lot in black, not so much in yellow. But once you play him, you can use his activate main and then draw 2 cards and warp 1 afterwards. So the card is really versatile. Next up, super combos. Surprise, surprise, SS Vegeta, the Prince Strikes Back. You can grab him off the Son Goku, which is really cool. But yeah, pretty straightforward. For most black decks, you are probably going to run that SS Vegeta. Up next are so-called secret rare, SS3 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire. Obviously right now, for anybody that doesn't know, this card is limited to 1 copy per deck. Unique Double Strike, Overwhelm 6 for 1 black energy, or Union Fusion for 1 black energy. Most of the time is going to be the Union Fusion. Permanent, you can choose battle cards in your warp when choosing this card's Union skill from your hand. If you do, place the chosen cards from your warp to your drop area, which can also fuel your drop area for another Overwhelm, which does help a lot. Obviously, if there was 3 copies or 4 copies of this deck would be super snapped, but they already limited this in the Dark Ages. And then auto, when this attacks, you can choose one of your opponent's battle cards, send it to the warp, so token negates. See you later. Okay, next up, we're going to get more into the kind of tech stuff. We have 2 Mirror Assault from the Skies. Double Strike, Overwhelm 7 for 1 energy. When you play this card, draw 1 card at the start of your opponent's next main phase, choose 1 energy, switch it to active mode. So a lot of the time that I'm playing this, it's either to close out game, or if I was floodgated and I don't have enough cards in hand to kind of push through that floodgate, which a lot of the times you do, but there will be certain situations where you get double floodgate with an Android 17 or it's just something really annoying. You can just use one of your overwhelms to play this Mira, draw a card, and kind of cycle through. You can also use Scientist Fu as well, but I do like this Mira because you get that energy back at the start of your opponent's turn for your counters or anything of the sort. Obviously, this deck is a lot more gas and doesn't really have too many breaks, but we'll get to those in a bit. Next up, one of Dark Broly Heartless Berserker. You can put this up to 2. I find that it does really suck having this card in your hand. Obviously, being a 0-0 combo, he's kind of useless for any sort of defense. But the activate main on him is really cool that since we have a black leader, we can tap 2 energy and just play him from our warp and then just keep him out there. That's kind of the only way I see myself playing him usually. I was thinking about cutting him from the deck, but it is nice for that backup. If we both have no cards in hand, I have no Z energy, and I have this in my warp, I at least have something that I can play for the turn. Next up, we got Trunks Power Overseeing Time. So this is an older card from set 3, Overwhelm 4 for 2 energy, Double Strike, auto. When you play this card using Overwhelm, choose 1 battle card from your warp, add it to your hand. So unlike this Goku, it has no restrictions. Doesn't even have a color restriction. I can grab anything I want from my warp, grab it back, and we have that for our secret rare. That's 100% what we have it for, because our secret rare gets bursted a lot off of our leader or off of Vegeta, so we just want something as backup to grab it. We have SSG Trunks Power Awaken, so similar kind of situation to Mirror Assault from the Skies. If I can't really attack anymore for the turn, or I don't really have any overwhelms in hand, I can play this for my warp for 2 black energy. If I have 8 or more cards in the warp, I pay the 2 black energy, play this card for my warp. It's same kind of permanent as the Goten. Once he's removed from the battle area, he's removed from the game instead. And when he attacks, I can place 3 battle cards from my warp to my drop area. It does help with building my drop up because I can potentially put 6 cards back between both of his swings. I see myself playing this when I'm like floodgated and I kind of don't have any overwhelms in hand. It's a backup. I don't see myself playing it too much, but it is there for the off chance that I don't have an overwhelm or something like that. I at least have a 20k dual attack to play from my warp directly. Next up, we have a card that I've played once and it did help me out in a match. It did not save me completely, but this is what my original Supreme Kai list when this deck first came out was completely based on, was Fu the Dark Banisher. It was really cool when I could get it off in the deck originally because it stuck down and it was a lot harder to get rid of. But he's triple attack, Overwhelm 8 for 4 energy, so a lot of energy in a black deck. Permanent, your opponent can't activate skills unless they choose 1 card in their hand and send it to their warp. Basically, this guy locks out every single skill that your opponent has. They want to draw off their leader, they want to counterattack, they want to do anything. They have to discard 1 card from hand. So especially in the blue matchup, if you already have them at low hand, and I had a board from the previous turn by critting a life, I can just slap this down if I want and basically almost guarantee game. And for things like blue, where Baby Hatch, you're gonna have to discard a card from hand from Baby Hatch's effect, you'd also have to discard from this guy, so they're technically going -3 in hand because they are playing the Baby Hatch as well. Anything else, Dimension Magic, they'd still have to get rid of a card from hand. It does help a lot too against super combos, because super combos, they're autos. They're skills that you have to proc if you want to get them. So he's super situational, but just as homage to the original deck, I'm keeping him in. Definitely a card you can cut out if you really want to. Speaking of cards you can cut out, here's one that I have to hand, but I almost never see a use for it. He definitely is, for certain situations, is SS4 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire. Besides just being an absolutely beautiful card, he's triple attack blocker, permanent. When this card is in rest mode, it can't be KO'd by your opponent's skills. Auto, when this card attacks, once per turn, your opponent chooses 2 cards in their hand and 2 of their battle cards, ignoring barriers, sends them to the owner's warp, and at the end of the turn, switches card to active mode. You play them by tapping 4 energy, and you can choose 1 Goku Xeno and 1 Vegeta Xeno in your battle area and or drop area, and send it to the owner's warp, play this card from your hand. He's 35k. Like, he is super good. He can't be KO'd by skills while he's in rest mode. You still have him in active mode at the start of the turn, right? So if someone finds a way to just pop something, he doesn't have barrier. So there's a lot of stuff that just KO cards pretty easily. Like this guy right here warps him, doesn't even care about KOing, so his effect's not going to save him. He's situational. It definitely can be cut from the deck, but you gotta have him in there for this. Like, most of the time, he's just gonna be in your drop area because you're gonna burst him off your leader. Next up, we're getting into more defensive stuff. Mass Sand, Brainwash No More. This is your kind of lifeline. If you have 1 energy up and your opponent's swinging in for a triple strike, you got 3 life left, they dump their whole hand. This is the haha gotcha bitch. Auto, when it's played with Overwhelm, place up to 3 black battle cards from your warp to your drop area. I've actually used that effect before just to get the draw off my leader, and he's a 30k, so he's not horrible for playing it like that. But activate battle for 1 black energy if my leader is black, and you discard this card from your hand. Place 1 card from your life to the drop area, and your leader doesn't take damage for the battle. So, someone goes all ham, swinging in 500k triple strike. I don't know, 500k. That's set 22 kind of business right there. But you just tap 1 energy, crit 1 life, and bada bing. You are down to 2 life instead of losing the game. More experienced players know if a black player has 1 energy up to look out for this card, so that's definitely something I like to tech into most of my black decks. Next up, Counterplay. Super Kamehameha, 2 copies of. You might hit a floodgate. A lot of times when I see this, I'm above 4 life, so I can't do anything about it. The counterplay skill is if my leader is black and I have 4 less life, if the battle card being played has energy cost 3 or less, it's sent to the warp instead of being played. And as a permanent, if all my energy is black, I get to take a life instead of paying for its energy cost. It is only active at 4. You can use the other black counterplay, the Begrudging Allies, or whatever the fuck it's called. Most of the time I want to use it for free anyway by ripping a life. A lot of the times just to hit a floodgate in this deck. Next up, the battle card negates. We got Supreme Kai of Time, Labyrinth of Unleashed. Got 2 copies of that. You can be running it at 3, but like I said, this is a lot of gas, not enough breaks. Supreme Kai of Time, she has a counterattack where you negate the attack, play this card. Permanent, if you or your opponent has 3 or more cards in their warp, reduce your energy cost by 2, so she's a 1-cost negate in this deck. You're going to have 3 cards in your warp pretty quickly. And then, when she's played using a counterattack skill, you can choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, send it to the owner's warp, and at the end of the turn, you play any card sent to the owner's warp with their skills negated. So you can negate, say, a leader swing, and then get rid of their battle card, or negate a battle card swing, get rid of another battle card. She's super good. She can basically stop 2 attacks if you play her right, or more if you're getting rid of a dual attack. But next up, Support of the Dark Empire. 2 copies of this. You can run it at 3 as well, but I've been finding 2 is the right number. Counterattack, mono black, negate the attack, and then play 1 Demon Realm Soldier token. Gains blocker for the turn. Permanent, if my life's at 5 or less, I can take a life instead of paying for its cost. Just good old token negate. Our red card, Further Destruction Champa, 1 copy of. Shotgun your leader. Why not? Shotgun a Broly if you really need to. Shotgun Trunks if you need to. There's a lot of stuff you can shotgun here, but a lot of the times I'm just putting on my leader because you can't activate battle and bottom deck my leader, so it's the safest option. And finally, to top it off with the SCR, we're going with Rebellu. Probably not the optimal SCR to go with this deck. Honestly, in my opinion, I'd probably go with Supreme Kai of Time Brainwashed, like I do with most black decks, so I wanted to change it up. I wanted to keep this SCR more on theme with the deck. This was the first black SCR I ever pulled, so it is nice seeing it again in this deck. It hasn't moved from this deck. I've had this deck built ever since it came out. It's just been kind of just in a dog shit state, and now it finally has some dash pack cards to kind of bring it to life here. But Rebellu, if you don't know what she does, she's ultimate double strike, dark overwhelm, 8 for 2 energy. She has the permanent, which every SCR has now, where when she's removed from the battle area, she's removed from the game instead. And then auto, if I have 4 more energy, when this card is played using dark overwhelm, play 2 black battle cards with different card names, energy cost 6 or less, with overwhelm skills from my warp. So targets for that, most of the time what I'm doing is those 2. I can grab that if I want to, but if I don't have a Trunks out already, I'm grabbing these 2 because that gives me a minimum of 2 energy here, because I can only play her on turn 4, so I still got 2 more energy open. Play her for 2, grab those 2 out. I can pay 1 more energy, grab a Go 10 as well, so I still have 1 energy left, and I can play Mass Sand, or I can play Thwarting off that. So it's a very scary turn coming in. Obviously a floodgate and comes down like Baby Hatch or something where I can't even pay attacks. It's kind of like I'm just left in the water here. She does have a nice auto to kind of go through that, being a defensive auto where I can choose 1 card in my battle area with overwhelm skill, place in the owner's drop area when your opponent's cards attack, negate the attack. So I can just ditch one of my overwhelm cards, say, no attacks going through, have fun. Which is really good against combo decks like Bojack, where they need to kind of get to the battle step and to do anything. So she's super good. Supreme Kai of Time is the same kind of energy investment for her full effect. You tap one to player, 50k double strike because of the Servant, and then you can tap one more and floodgate your opponent. You can run Cumbra as well too, but I honestly think the Supreme Kai of Time is the best. Rebellu is just the flex pick. You gotta run her. I don't know who the hell she is. She's a secretary or some shit. That's her Demigra's secretary. And if you can play a secretary that can kick someone's ass, you gotta play it. Let's get into the Z deck. We're running 2 copies of Pan Search for Another World. So this is the new Dashback Z card that came out with the Trunks and the Goten. She's 1 energy, 2 Z energy, 15k, auto. If your leader's black, Supreme Kai of Time, when you place a card from your life to your drop area from a leader skill, you can place the top card of your deck into life. That's a limit 1. And activate main, limit 1, bond 3, cards with Xeno. A lot of stuff in this deck has Xeno, so it doesn't have to be those 2. That's a Goku Xeno, Trunks Xeno, Vegeta Xeno, Goku Xeno, Gogeta Xeno. Like, there's a lot of shit here. A bunch of Trunks Xenos in this deck. You basically just get to warp a card every turn. So activate main, bada bing, get rid of a blocker token, get rid of anything that you see that's a threat. The coolest thing about her, obviously, is the part where the Supreme Kai of Time, I can basically keep my Overwhelm cards without any tax. I'm not really critting a life. Sure, I got to crit a life, put 2 back, but I'm getting that life back anyway. So I'm not really killing myself in this deck. I'm just putting a card here. Oh, look, top card of my deck might make me mill out slightly faster. Well, you only got to worry about that if you're facing a mill deck. Next up, Majin Buu, Pure Destroyer. So 1 energy, 1 Z energy, blocker, activate main, blah blah blah, AOD, don't care. But the activate limit 1, the one I do care about, is if my leader is black and I have 3 or more energy and I place one of my Z energy to the drop area, I can choose one of my opponent's battle cards, place it under this card, and this card gets plus 20k until the end of your opponent's next turn. So he's 25k. Most of the time, it's just going to be a 25k swing, but if you need a blocker, you can do it. He's got no protection, so I don't recommend the blocker always. So realistically, with Buu, you kind of do need 2 Z energy if you want to finish a game with him, just to have him as a 25k, so you need to ditch 1 more Z energy for his activate main limit 1 effect. I think he's pretty good. Most of the time, I'm just trying to play Pan. I went with 2 originally just to see if the deck would really function with the other Z cards. Doesn't really. Honestly, 4 copies of the Pan, 3 copies of the Buu could just be the perfect Z deck. But we're getting into the weirder stuff here. SS Son Goku for the mission. Weird name, but critical. My leader's black, Xeno Goku. He gets an effect where you can grab the Unison, but we don't have access to that effect anyway, so it doesn't matter. Activating once per turn for every 7 black battle cards in your warp. You get plus 5k power for the turn. Being 15k crit already, you potentially can get to 25k crit. Only problem is it's 2 energy, and 2 energy in this deck you can do a lot of shit with, so unless you have 0 cards in hand, he's kind of just a backup. Same thing, Demigra, 2 energy, 3 Z energy. 3 Z energy is pretty expensive if you can't find your Trunks to do your combos, or if you're using your combos to fuel your drop instead of your Z energy. I've never played those 2 cards at all, so like I said, you could probably cut them from the deck and just go with a 4-3 split between the Pan and the Buu, or 3-4, doesn't really matter. Yeah, the Demigra gains power for every Z battle card you have, and every time you overwhelm, you can draw an extra card and pop a card. Cool in theory, but 2 energy in this deck is kind of a lot to be doing that, and for it to have no protection, I don't think it's worth it. I was originally, back when this deck came out, was running Vegeta Time Regulator, which would be really cool to run in this deck. Just 2 energy is way too much for what you can do with 2 energy in here between just that and that together. You can have 2 25k double strikes if you have your battle area and warp set up properly for 2 energy. So that's what we're working with here. But that's the deck. If you want to see me rock this deck, I'm probably going to be playing it tomorrow live, twitch.tv/Kaioken Cards. Come in 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can cut down some of the tech choices in here. They're kind of things that I just wanted to run in the deck. They're not completely optimized, but I like that playstyle there, especially when you can if you get to turn 4 and you can smack down a Rebellu and then you just go completely wild. Every time I've smacked her down, I've won the game, so that's why I like her. But Supreme Kai of Time, like I said, can come down a turn earlier, and it's 50 double for 1 energy, where you can finish there, and if you can't, you pay 1 more energy and you floodgate. I don't know. But with that being said, it is a 53 card list, so if you really wanted to cut out those pieces, like I said, most of this deck you can flip around. I would say basically this top row, the super combos, the Trunks Overseeing Time, just for any secret rare you have, it's probably going to end up in the drop area, so you probably want to have one of those just so you can have access to your secret rare. Because even in this deck, turn 4, I can just tap 2 for Trunks, get my effect with my leader, put the battle cards back, grab the Rebellu, and then I still have a Dark Overwhelm since my Demigre gave me Wormhole, and I still have 2 more energy to play around with, so they do sync up pretty nicely. But that's just my version of the deck. I think Supreme Kai of Time is definitely the best black deck right now, which isn't saying much.